Over the years I've reviewed quite a few different neck speakers. So I've tried various different models, one of which was a Sony model which I had attached up to the television. But when the TV got swapped out and some of the other equipment that went with it had to be replaced, there was nowhere left to plug that one in. So it's been quite a while since I've had one for that purpose, and I think it's time that I give it another go. So I went and got myself a Sony SRS-NS7. This is their most recent model, promising Dolby Atmos on the front of here, but more on that in a moment. But you might be wondering what the purpose of a neck speaker is. Well, it's different things for different people. I think when a lot of people were working from home, they were using them as speakerphones, but also, of course, you can just use it for listening to music. It's like a normal set of headphones, but also keeping your ears available for anything else that might be going on around you. The purpose of this model really for me is to have it attached up to the audio output coming from the TV, and you can sit on your couch across the room, and late at night you could watch a loud action movie, but you're not waking anyone else in the house up. And that's the main purpose that I've got this for, some late night explosive TV viewing. So we'll see how I get on with that. But going back to this point about the Dolby Atmos, let me just say something about that. Okay, so just imagine you walked into an electronics store, if you could find one open. It does require some imagination, this. And you pick this box up off the shelf and you had a look at it. Would you think that you were going to get Dolby Atmos audio out of this neck speaker? I don't think it would be unfair to assume that, especially when you look at the back. You've got a chap sat on his couch here. He's surrounded by this blue sphere of audio with sound coming from all directions, even overhead. And at the top it mentions 360 spatial sound. But the reality is you're not going to get Dolby Atmos sound out of this unless you were to pair it with the appropriate Sony television. It mentions here, the combination of Bravia XR models and SRS-NS7 allows for you to have a Dolby Atmos experience with your entertainment. So that is a very important bit of text, because this, on its own with your normal television, will not give you Dolby Atmos. It's only in conjunction with the compatible Sony televisions. I'll explain more as to why that is later on, but we'll just have a look at the rest of the stuff on here. 12-hour battery life, Bluetooth, use it as a hands-free device for making phone calls, IPX4, and on the side here, Bluetooth version 5.0, codecs SBC, AAC, and LDAC. Again, another mention, 360-degree sound that adapts to your ears with Bravia XR. I don't have a Bravia XR television, so I'm interested to find out what I get out of this. And there's our neck speaker. I'll just take it out. There's a little puck type device, and this connects up with your TV. I'll show you that properly in a moment. Let's see what else is at the bottom of here. We've got our wires. Right, let's have a look. With the exclusion of the documentation, here's what was inside the box. We'll start off with the most important thing, the speaker. Now this does have a degree of flexibility to it, but it doesn't retain its shape, it just springs back. On the top here we've got a very thin cloth covering over what feels like a crisscross of plastic beams through which the audio will come via a driver in approximately these positions here on either side. Now if we were to flip this over, you can see we've got two elements here that look like speakers, but I believe these are just base ports, passive radiators. This has got a silicone covering over here, which is, I suppose, white clean. It is splash proof as well, this device. Now we'll just have a look on the side here. You can see we've got a USB-C port there for charging. You charge these with the smaller of the two USB-C leads that are included. The other one will go with this device here and remain plugged into that. We'll just have a look at the switches we've got on here. On this side we've got a plus, a minus and a button in the middle, so volume up and down, play and pause. And on this side, if you look at the left hand side, we've got a hole, that'll be the mic hole, and then we have the microphone on or off button, as well as the power, which also doubles as the Bluetooth pairing switch. So that's the tour of that part, and then the rest of it, well, we've got our USB-C lead that we mentioned, which powers this little puck device here. On the back of here we've got an optical input and the USB-C, of course, and we've got the optical lead included for that, which you should plug into the back of your television and send the audio out to this device. This is just a Bluetooth transmitter. It does have a Bluetooth pairing button on here as well as a little LED on the top. And I believe that this device has been designed to minimise latency. Right, let's give it a go. Okay, it sits a little bit different to the previous one. I'd say it sits further back. The other one, that definitely had some harder edges on it that seemed to jab into the wrong parts. Now, one of the issues with the previous one, in a reclining chair, if you were to lean back, it kind of fouled on the headrest and it all started rising up. I think this one will be better because it's more cut out here in the middle, or at least it feels like it is. So you can put your head all the way back and it's not adjusting these side parts. So it looks like they've thought about it. So yeah, the fit seems good enough. So we'll try it out on the system in a minute. I've got to get it wired in, but let me talk about the wiring, because that's the main issue with this and the reason why I'm not going to be able to get Dolby Atmos, and why anyone that doesn't have the appropriate Sony television isn't going to be able to get Dolby Atmos. So let's go into that. The issues we've got all stem from the only audio input on this being that optical port. The reason that's a problem is because you can't get Dolby Atmos over an optical lead. It doesn't have sufficient bandwidth. To get Dolby Atmos through your system, it needs to be connected up via HDMI. Now, all my devices are connected together via HDMI. So I've got various consoles and things, set-top boxes, streaming boxes, all going into a soundbar which is capable of Dolby Atmos. Everything that can do Dolby Atmos has got it enabled, but also from the TV side of things, I've got the EARC HDMI coming back from the TV into the soundbar, and that can get the Dolby Atmos off any TV broadcasts if that was in there. So everything's Dolby Atmos at the moment. Now the trouble is, if I was to enable the optical output on my TV, I have to disable the EARC, and I've downgraded everything. So this little optical cable is a bit of a nuisance. I can't plug it in the back of the TV and carry on doing things as I already was, and I don't want to downgrade the sound just so I could use this thing and the functionality as well. So instead, I'm going to just plug this into a streaming box with an optical output and then send it off to this so I can listen to the audio from that. But yeah, I can't get it out of my whole system because it's all connected up via HDMI to enable the EARC and the Dolby Atmos. Now, the question that I've got is, what kind of sound am I going to get through this thing? Because if I'm going to be sending, say, Dolby Digital or DTS or whatever into this, what then comes out of that to these headphones? Since I'm not going to be getting this Dolby Atmos that I would have got with the Sony televisions, what am I getting? Am I just getting stereo, or am I getting some kind of surround sound? I'll find out. Now, the way it works with Bravia XRs, it's got functionality built within the TV to somehow get Dolby Atmos out to this device. Whether it's proper Dolby Atmos or some kind of faked system, I don't know, but I certainly know I'm not going to be getting anything like that. So I'm going to find out what I do get. So let me plug all this in and we'll give it a go. Now, since I can't plug it into the television, the next best thing is to plug it into my streaming box. I watch a lot of different streaming services through this. However, the only issue is that this does not have an optical output on it. The only sockets are power, HDMI and Ethernet. But this isn't just Apple getting rid of sockets. If you were to buy a new Roku or a Fire TV or a Google Chromecast, you won't find optical outputs on those either. Pretty much everyone just expects you to send your audio via HDMI nowadays. The closest you're going to get on one of the current mainstream streaming boxes is an optical to USB adapter that's available for the NVIDIA Shield. But there is a workaround. You could get an HDMI audio extractor. There's a number of different ones on the market. This is one that I got quite cheaply. Haven't used it yet. Hopefully it's going to work. But the idea with this is your HDMI goes into the back, comes out of the front. The audio goes with that as normal, but also it strips it off and sends it out over optical. So therefore I'll be able to plug this into here and I'll be able to daisy chain that behind my Apple TV. Okay, now I'm going to have to return to the topic of connecting this up with the television later in the video because there's been a bit of a complication in that area, but still I want to test them out. So instead I connected them up with the phone, regular Bluetooth connection. They function like a regular set of Bluetooth headphones because that's pretty much what they are. In fact, it even has the usual voice that you get out of Sony headphones.
Battery, about 80%. Bluetooth connected.
So really just a set of Bluetooth headphones, albeit laid out in a different manner to your regular ones. Rather than blocking you in, they're sending the sound out all over the place. These aren't the kind of things for private listening in a public place. For example, if you were sitting on a train and you were to play your audio, it's not just you hearing it. These are effectively Bluetooth stereo speakers. They're going out all over the place. I wanted to try and get the best quality of sound out of them, just to give them the best test I could. And all over the documentation, it keeps mentioning this Sony 360 reality audio thing. So I thought I should test them out with that. Now, I didn't have anything that offered that facility. Amazon Music does, so I ended up signing up for that on a free trial thing. And then I also went into the Sony headphone app, and in there, it then offered me the option to analyze my ears so that we could get the best quality of 360-degree sound for them. I have suspicions that this whole thing is a load of nonsense, and those photos that you take of your ears are just going off to some ear fetishist. Nevertheless, I went through the process and it said it would send off the data to one of the following services, and Amazon Music wasn't in there. I had to sign up to Tidal, and you had to sign up to the top tier as well to get 360 audio, and that is very expensive. I think it was like 25 quid a month or something. Luckily I got this like free trial, and I started listening to this 360 audio, and I was able to jump back and forth between the regular stereo and the 360 enhance. The sound quality as a whole, whether it's stereo or 360, is very good. It's very clear, it's well balanced, it's got a nice level of bass to it, a nice treble. There's nothing that's too much one way or the other, too harsh or too bassy. It doesn't like vibrate on your neck. It's just a really kind of rich, clear sound. In fact, when I was listening to some of the 360 stuff, I put some tracks on that I was familiar with listening to before, and I was picking up on lyrics that I hadn't really noticed. They kind of passed me by, but because it was all spaced out, I suppose you could better identify the individual parts of it. But I've got to say, this whole 360 thing to me seems like a bit of a nonsense, because it isn't 360. Apple's description of it on their service, when they say spatial music, seems a little bit more genuine because they talk about spacing out the music. 360 gives me the impression of 360 degrees. And the way they show that sphere of audio and stuff, there's stuff overhead, there's stuff over... It can't be in front of me. Speakers are here. It's just one speaker either side. There's nothing going on with regard to beam forming, any of that business. No, it's just, you've got a set of stereo speakers sat on your shoulder. Now, it is a little bit odd to listen to, in fact. You have to get used to it, because even if it's just regular stereo, it feels like it's slightly behind you all the time. And from music you've listened to in the past, whether you've got your headphones on or you're watching your TV or whatever, it always seems to be in front somewhere. Like your speakers are over there, they come back to here for your headphones, but rarely does it go behind. Well, that's what this feels like, slightly behind. You feel like you should turn around to listen to the music, like it's the band is playing slightly behind you, but of course if you turn around, it's still playing slightly behind you. So you have to get used to that idea. But still, the sound quality is very good, but it's certainly not 360. It's, well, not for me anyway. I mean, maybe different people have different feelings with this. If you've tried some of this spatial music before, maybe you experience audio from over there and back, and you could really pinpoint it. For me, it just sounds wider. It's a lot like the stereo systems that I grew up with, where you'd have like a 3D button, or you'd have a stereo enhance option, and it would just, through processing, widen it out. Now, I'm not saying it's that level of quality, but it's the same kind of idea. It's like that, but improved with better computational abilities to broaden out the soundstage in a less basic way, but still it's just that, it's a broadened soundstage. But, and it's a big but, I didn't get these to use as a replacement for regular Bluetooth headphones. I got them so I could sit here late at night listening to a surround movie with all the effects still intact, clear dialogue, all the bass there, the subwoofer, all that kind of stuff, but just local rather than all around the room. And this is where I came into a bit of a problem, because once I'd connected this little device up, this optical out device, to the Apple TV, and I thought, right, I'll start watching a movie on it. So I sat back here, I turned the sound down on the surround system, I just had it coming out through this, and I started playing it, and I'm thinking, this film's taken a while to say anything. There was music coming through, all the audio, but nobody said anything. I thought, it's a bit weird. After about 3 minutes, I thought, hold on a minute, turned on the surround system, And there was dialogue there. What was happening was I wasn't getting the centre channel. I was just getting the stereo channels. So I was hearing all the music, but no dialogue whatsoever. So I looked at this thing, and there are options with dip switches on the bottom to reduce down the number of channels. I had to get it down to stereo 2.0, and then I was fine. The audio was coming through as it should do. So then I was just getting stereo through. I thought, well, all right, I could live with stereo, I suppose. I could just sit here at night watching stereo. But then I had a look, and the HDMI pass-through also then just became 2.0. So I'd lost all the surround effects from the rest of the system as well. So the pass-through was the same result as the optical out. Basically, I could only get stereo through my whole system if I wanted to use these with the streaming box. So that was a bad idea. I thought, well, I still want to try these out with something that's in surround sound. So I plugged them into the Blu-ray player. Well, the first Blu-ray player I tried only had a coax out, so I couldn't use that. So I went into the second one, changed all the settings so that it would output the right kind of audio to this, because the way it was set up with Atmos, it was all silent to start with. So you had to kind of downgrade everything to a level that it could come out over the optical. And then I could play through my demo discs of DTS and Dolby Atmos and try those. And it just sounded like stereo again. And the problem with this whole system is that it's all obfuscated. I don't know what this little box, this, well, puck, is sending to these. But when you think about it, we've just got one speaker either side. That's it. There are bass ports on the bottom, but it's all passive. So we've effectively got one driver either side. So it is going to sound like stereo. Now, the way they've got that 360 audio working, that's all processing at the other end before the audio is sent to here. And I suppose that's what's happening with that Sony television. It's getting this stereo and doing some 360 mapping type thing on it. But still, I think you're just getting stereo through these. And that's it. There's nothing more clever than that. In the end, I got this device and attached it up to the television. I thought, right, I'll use the optical out on the TV so I could at least get some use out of this thing. I can have the whole audio system going through it. What I'll have to do every time I want to use this, I'll have to turn off the HDMI EARC, move it across to the optical. It worked for a couple of minutes and then it reverted back. It kept trying to revert itself back. It's like, oh no, you don't want to use optical. Use HDMI. The TV's trying to be helpful. And every time you turn it off or change sources or whatever, it sticks it back on the EARC. So it wasn't working on that. Now, I'm not new to this. I've been using surround sound systems since like the mid-80s with VHS Hi-Fi. So I've got all the way through, and I think the problem is that Sony's just using the wrong system here. You can't use optical on a device in 2023. It's like bringing out a new colour laser printer and having only a parallel port on it. It's the wrong technology. Now, it might be that this is all that they can use. Maybe they can't break into that HDMI signal. It'd be good if this thing had an HDMI in and out and then sent the audio off to this. And then it would work with modern day stuff. But how many people have a spare optical output on the devices nowadays? They're living in the past with this, but it isn't an old product. It's currently on the market. It's been out a year or so, perhaps a little bit longer. And on top of all that, it's very uncomfortable for me. Now, it depends what you're wearing, I think, if you've got a bit of padding in here. But I just can't get used to it. The problem is the bit at the back here, this bit of plastic, that's a bit of hard plastic. Now, that's right on a bone on my neck. Now, maybe other people don't have that bone there. Maybe they're all there with a floppy necks, or they've got a big fat bit of padding or something. I don't know. But I can tell you, as far as I'm concerned, that is uncomfortable. It bends down at exactly the point where this thing bends up and the two things meet, and it's very uncomfortable. And the weight distribution on this is a little bit weird as well. It doesn't feel like it's sitting down here. It feels like it wants to fall back all the time. So I figured out, hold on, I can't use this thing. There's literally no way I can use this. Now, normally with things, I try and find a way to make them work. I've tried everything here over a few days. Doesn't work for me. So for one of the first times, I'm packing it all back up, sending it back to Amazon and getting a refund. Look, it might work for some people. If you've got the appropriate kind of Sony television, it might work better with that, although I still feel that you're not going to get any kind of proper surround. You're just going to get some sort of faux surround system. The trouble is nowadays people throw away this term Atmos too readily. Atmos used to mean that you had overhead speakers, in addition to loads of speakers around the room, 7.1.4 and all that kind of stuff. Now they'll stick the word Atmos on a stereo television. It means nothing anymore. They've ruined it for themselves. So when I'm sending this back to Amazon, you have to go on a drop-down menu and choose the reason why you're sending it back. Unfortunately, there was one of those that said incompatible. And that's pretty much what this is. It's incompatible with my home cinema system, and it's incompatible with my Neck as well. So it's just not worked out. But there you go. That was a Sony NS7. No affiliate links. If you want one, you can find one somewhere. You might be able to get an open box one if you go looking on Amazon in a few weeks. Anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.